Hi, it's Lee from Silverback Runner, and today's video is really going to be about, well, kind of running motivation, but not, because being an old runner doesn't mean you have to be an old runner, and there's a big difference. I mean, somebody I used to know many years ago used to say to me, Lee, don't get old, and I used to go, well, the alternative's pretty terrible, really. So, assuming that we all want to sort of stay on this mortal coil, we are all going to get older. But the big difference is, in running terms, as we get older, do we want to become an old runner, or that feeling of being an old runner? Yep, we are ultimately all going to get slower in the end. But how can we slow that process down and make ourselves feel more enlivened? Now, there's no magic wand here, but one of the big things I would say is, some of you may have heard of the 80-20 rule. So for basically 80% of the wealth is owned by 20% of the people. Now, that percentage is not accurate. The point is that research has shown that things don't go into equal amounts. So you can put 20%, 15% of your focus into a particular area and probably get the large percent of your results. So that's really what the 80-20 rule is around. Now, one of the areas in running that I see that I think a lot of older runners really have to be aware of is what I call the kind of sedentary lifestyle that runners lead. Now, it creeps up on runners because we run, so we see ourselves, understandably, as active people, and also compared to a lot of people, especially older people in our group, we are active, a lot more active than a lot of people. However, you've got to apply that 80-20 rule in the respect of, out of 100% of your time, how much are you actually moving? Now, if you're only really moving when you run, so say 10% of the time, that's when you're predominantly moving. So you go out for a run, that is, to use a term, your exercise. Then for a good percentage of the time after that, you're pretty sedentary. It may be your job. You sit down for long periods of time. It may be that as you got older, you like comfort. So, you like a lot easier life, which we will come to in a moment. Nothing wrong with that in itself. But we're in a way very sort of subversively asking more of our bodies, while in lots of ways doing less. Now, when we were younger, we could probably get away with that. We could go out for that run, come in and not do much, and our bodies went, oh, that's okay. Now, the old saying, if we don't use it, we lose it, is always true. The unfortunate and rather unfair scenario is, as we get older, if we don't use it, we lose it really quickly. Which I know is crappy, but is the reality of life. So what I'd suggest is looking at your life, your running training, look at it holistically. So look at it as a whole. Yeah, look at your training schedule, what you're doing as a runner, but also look at your life when you stop running. How much are you moving? So for example, and I'm not suggesting this for everybody because it may not be possible, but for me personally, I'm 3.5 miles away from the hair salon I own, which I'm standing in at the moment. And I could easily either drive, I could get my wife to drop me off in here, I could get a bus, you could do all those things, and they would get me to work a lot quicker. I could spend a little bit longer in bed. What I do every morning is I walk 3.5 miles. Now, I use that time, I listen to podcasts, I listen to audiobooks, and I see that as a self-development time for myself. that 3.5 miles is never logged on Strava. It's not part of my mileage. It's just that I'm moving. Now, I'm also very fortunate in the respect that I just have a job where I get to work and I'm moving all day. And it was really interesting. A number of years ago, I had a back problem. Now, hairdressers have always been told they're going to get back problems. And when I first started hairdressing, the advice was, hairdressing was bad for backs. All the movement is bad for you. When I went to my osteopath and I had a back problem about 9-10 years ago, first thing she asked is, what job do I do? And I said, I'm a hairdresser. Well, that's good, she said, plenty of movement. And that's changed. Now, you look at a lot of people, they've got sedentary jobs. Now, I know you can't change your job just because of your running, but to be aware of it and try and get up and move a little bit more. To give you an example, quite often, time I've arrived at work, I've done about 9,000 steps before I've even arrived at work. Time I leave to go home, before I probably run, because I normally run in the evenings, I'm at about 18, 19, maybe 20,000 steps. Now, I'm not saying that to go, ooh, look at me. What I'm saying is that's a lot of movement in a day. If I'm just out running, so for example, when we had a lockdown in the UK, I was doing a lot less of that. And my steps total came really down. My movement total came really down. I was still running a lot. So what I had to start doing was doing a lot more walking in the day as well to keep my movement going. So be really aware of it, because it's really insidious, I think, as we get older, is that, because we tend to compare, there will be friends of yours out there that are doing a lot less than you. And the fact that you're going out running, you think, oh, I'm out there running. But just be aware that if the rest of your life is sedentary, that can have an impact on your running, because that sudden, oh, I'm out running, that's when runners start to pick up injuries and go, why am I getting all these injuries? And the combination of a lack of strength training, which we're not going to go big into this video, but that's a big part of it. But what I do tend to notice is in people I coach and stuff, is they're active in their running, but they're not so active in their lifestyle outside of running. So I think that's a major, major thing. I think the other factor is to look at the type of running you do. Don't become a victim of fads. I'm a great fan of 80-20 running as a theme here, isn't it? In the respect that you do about 80% of your running fairly easy, 20% with some sort of speed or intensity. It's very, very easy to get dragged into marketing, and I'm not saying certain types of running don't work, like things like math running, where you're running most of your runs at a very a lower heart rate, are really popular, and I can really understand why they appeal to older runners, and I think they've got great benefit, particularly new older runners, because the last thing you want to do is when you start running, like a car that hasn't gone over a certain speed in a long time, suddenly whack it into fifth gear and go racing down the road. The wheels probably will fall off the car. So, it's got a lot of credit that you can build up slowly and build that, if you look at it like a triangle, that at the bottom of that aerobic base, you do need that. But what a lot of marketing does is kind of make, well, that is the way, that's the holy grail. You only ever run steady, you never go fast. And, then there's other runners, that they've got older and they're kind of, and I admire this in a way, but they're fighting the fire and, well, I've always run at this pace. And, you say, well, you're going to go out for an easy run today, and you go out running with them, and then it suddenly turns into a tempo, and then there's a really fast finish. And they've got that pace, and that's the only pace they're going to go, because, they're not slowing down. And of course your body goes, well, you are slowing down, because I'm going to slow you down. I'm going to give you an injury, so you stop. And so you've got those two extremes, and rather unsexily, the truth is somewhere in the middle. I know, it's so bloody boring, isn't it? When you're trying to sell something and it's in the middle, We've got to make an extreme because that's what gets attention. Well, my friends, as you get older, sometimes you've got to just accept that the truth is somewhere in the middle. And the truth is, build up that aerobic capacity if you haven't already. Yeah, do those slow, steady runs, keep your heart rate low, conversational runs. But then once you start to get stronger, start adding some speed, even if it's just a little bit of finish fast, a few fast paces throughout your run, a few strides, just to kind of get your body, working on those other kind of levels, not just on that lower aerobic level. And I think you find a lot of benefit from that. So don't get kind of waylaid by marketing. That would be my thing. Look at it logically, where you are as a runner now, build from there, build that aerobic base, but then don't be frightened to add in some speed work. Obviously, if you've got a coach, they will kind of give you the kind of speed work that's right for you at that point, and then you can build up, to whatever your ability allows and enables you to build up to. And then, rather unsexily, I would say, as an older runner, try and forget motivation. I keep hearing from people, talking about motivation. Oh, I need to be motivated. Oh, and then they look out the window and it's dark and it's wet. Oh, not motivated today. It's snowing. Actually, snow's a bad example because you probably shouldn't run in snow. But, it's raining. I'm not going out today. And then if you're in the UK, there's about 4 days a year where it's either not raining, it's not really hot, it's not really windy. I think there's about 3 days a year where it's just about right. So motivation doesn't really get you very far. Motivation's a mood, and moods are affected by external factors. And if you've been watching the news recently, then you'd probably never go out running. Whereas discipline, its rewards are at the end. You get that by, deciding that you're going to do a thing. And I don't mean if you're ill or if you're injured. I mean, if you set yourself to do a thing and you're able to do it, when that little voice in your head goes, oh, it's a bit wet outside today, I don't want to go out, it's warm and I'm under a duvet, then you just tell that voice in your head to politely bleep, bleep, off, get up, make it easy, have your trainers where they should be. Excuse me, I've got a good really nose. Make it really easy to do and just do it. And your reward for that comes at the end of that run or the subsequent runs. Motivation's yet again marketed way more than discipline because people are gonna gobble up, motivational quotes. Motivational quote never got me round a race in my life. What got me round is the discipline that's been built over the subsequent training over a block of 18 weeks, the previous year, the year before that, the year before that. It's not about being perfect. It's not about beating yourself up. Quite the opposite. It's kind of that discipline is about valuing yourself. As a person, and it's very easy as we get older to embrace comfort. And sometimes getting up that little bit earlier in the morning, even if you don't want to, perhaps even turning on that shower just for a cold splash at 30 seconds, because every fibre of your body will be going, no, I don't want to do it. That's why you do it, because it trains your brain in the end to kind of go, yeah, whatever this chattering monkey's going on in my head, it's got no relevance to what I'm doing, because your brain wants to keep you safe. Your brain wants to keep you in complete comfort, because billions of years ago, there wasn't much comfort and there wasn't much safety. So when it came along, your brain was going, go for that, my old friend, because you might not get that ever again. So do it, eat all that food because you may never see it again. Sleep as long as you can because you may never get a chance to do that again. The problem is that's not the world we live in now. We've got fridges full of food And we've got a comfortable, most of us fortunately, a fairly comfortable life. Even the people who are saying here, I haven't got a comfortable life, probably are still in the top 10% of the world. And the rest of the people have got probably a damn sight less comfortable life. I mean, if you've got time to watch a YouTube video, you're reasonably comfortable, I would say. Controversial? Maybe, maybe not. But, so, get uncomfortable a little bit, because that then trains your brain to get out there. And you might be saying, Lee, I'm older, I don't need all that. I don't need it. Well, then don't do it. All I'm saying is that I told somebody the other day, life steps forward. You step back, life steps forward. You step back, life steps forward, until you're in a box. And what I said to this person, and I mean literally in a box, you've got to step forward. Life will keep stepping forward until you've got nowhere to go. So as we get older, it's very easy to go, comfortable way, I'll step back. Life steps forward. You've just got to take that step forward, even if it's a little bit. And that takes discipline, because you won't always actually feel like doing it. And finally, I was going to say sleep, but I want to go a bit deeper than that. Sleep's really vital for older runners, because we need that recovery. But a lot of older runners don't sleep very well. Now, I'm not going to go into menopause. I know that's a major factor, hormonal factors, and I'm not really an expert to be able to kind of go onto that. I know that's a major thing. I know people who have had that problem. But with putting that to one side, I think a lot of older runners, why they don't sleep too well is they're trying to control everything. It's quite weird, isn't it? When we were younger, and perhaps we should try and control a little bit more around us. We don't. We just go, yay, let's go for it, just do anything. And as we get older, we try to control more in a weird way, which is kind of odd, really, when you stop to think about it. And I think if I'm talking to people I've coached, there seems to be a common thing, is they are worrying about being out of control of things. Now, the unhelpful answer is you are out of control. You have very little control over very, very little that goes on in the world. Now, that isn't probably going to give you a good night's sleep, but that is the reality. But what you can do is kind of take an inventory of, back to this 80-20 rule again, is what you can control and what you can't. What you're worried about, what aspect of that can you control? So, for example, I don't want to mention the word on the video just in case YouTube throws it out, but there's been a certain pandemic doing the rounds that I'm sure you're all aware of. People have worried about that constantly. Worry. All this and that, and then the media exacerbates that worry. There's a small percentage of people that thought, what can I actually do? So, what's my health like? Am I eating well? Am I exercising? Am I taking supplements that may make my immune system work better so that I may avoid said thing? Or if I get it, I won't be so bad. What have the majority of the population done? Nothing. But they've worried. Oh my God, they've worried. I work in a hairdresser's. I can tell you, they worried for England and the world. But what have they done? So, this is not berating anyone. I'm just saying, then they go home and they toss and turn and, this terrible pandemic, which it has been a terrible pandemic. But can you control a pandemic? You can't. Can you control what you eat? How you exercise? Now, that's one example. But we all tend to be laying there at night, eyes big as planets, worrying, and I would guarantee it's normally worrying about something we can't do anything about. So then you have to start looking at what is the 1 or 2 areas impact of that problem that you can do something about, and just push the others to the side, because unless you like worrying, unless you love worrying about something you can't control, which makes you feel like you've got some control, but you haven't. But the one areas or few areas that you have will be the thing that gives you the most control. It's not sexy. It's not sort of like going to sell millions of motivational books. But I'm guaranteed if you're not sleeping well, apart from good sleep hygiene, don't be watching one of these YouTube videos just before you go to bed. Read perhaps an actual paper book. I love technology, but you don't have book, don't have electronic stuff. Have good sleep hygiene. All those things are really important. But you get into the covers and you go, oh, this pandemic, or I saw it on the news, we're all gonna die. I'm not mocking that. I know people that have lost people. It's been a serious situation. I'm just using that as an example because it's general. We've all been there. And we've all had anxiety. I have. We all have. The people who have fared best have then taken control of the bit they can take control of. And whatever issue that is worrying you and keeping you up at night, I guarantee that the way that you will feel more ease and at peace with yourself is to take control of the bits that you can control and to the best of your ability to ignore what you can't. Anyway, gone on way longer than I thought. And I know some of you might be thinking, what's this got to do with running, Lee? You never mentioned strides. Well, you did once, I think. I don't look at running as something that is just individual. I see running as something that will impact my whole life. It impacts the way that I will be as a runner, but it also impacts the way I am as a husband, as a dad, and in the future as a grandparent. Because that's how I'm going to show up to life. So I see running as something way more than just putting a pair of trainers on and going for a PB. And that's kind of why my videos go off on tangents. Not everybody's cup of tea, but if it's your cup of tea, great. Perhaps you might want to subscribe even, get to see more videos, or at least give us a like so that the algorithm grows my tiny little channel. Anyway, have a great day and speak to you really soon. Bye for now.